And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast. I am here tonight to cover the Rowdies. That is what I usually do. And we're not going live this week because my usual co-host is not where he usually is, but he is joining me tonight. So, Carlos, how are you doing this Tuesday night?
James, I am not live from the lovely city. What are we? Hilton? I don't know. Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Cool place. Nice beaches. They don't compare to Tampa, but it is what it is. We're here having a good time talking Rowdies. Was looking for the nearest USL League 2 NPSL action I could find. Unfortunately, not for another 2 weeks due to the Savannah Clovers play. But I'll tell you what, I would have been thrilled to go catch the Savannah Clovers game. Random little logo, good team.
Don't they have a very nice jersey?
Yeah, nice jersey, cool logo. I mean, I don't know. That's all you can ask for a soccer sicko like myself. And I'm sure in a cool little field in historic Savannah, Georgia. I'm like 30 minutes north of there. Enjoying being unemployed this summer while I look for a full-time job. And, it's fun. We're having a good time, James. But I'll tell you what, I was back in Tampa Bay for this lovely game against Louisville. It was a really, really, really fun time. We'll talk about why it was fun. But it wasn't fun for a little bit, and, we'll get into all of that, but it was entertaining. If you're a neutral, you're a casual, you're watching this game, you got a treat for sure. But, James, how are you doing before we jump into any of that fun stuff?
Yeah, I am doing well. I missed the game because I was at a wedding this weekend. Congratulations to Trevor and Mary while we're on it. But in the meantime, I have been swimming, so no comments about my ridiculous hair for those people who ultimately hop on the YouTube and see. In the meantime, though, Carlos, we're going to get rid of all of that, move past it, and we're going to talk about the Rowdies because we're not here to talk about South Carolina or Savannah, Georgia, as nice as several of those places are. We are here to talk about what goes on usually at Al Lang Stadium. And this past week, the Rowdies won thanks to a late Damian Rivera winner to beat Louisville City, top of the league, top of the table, Louisville City, 3-2. Very good stuff there. Carlos, you and Eureka got a point this past weekend for predicting a win that puts you on 7 and Eureka on 6. My hedging is not working in terms of the betting, but I have another chance. I probably won't. I probably just won't. But I do have another chance because we have to preview another game this Friday, not Saturday, but Friday, away to Hartford Athletic in Connecticut. That is a weird state. It seems too small to be a state, but it is one, and they have Hartford, where we will be playing our next game. Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can see my silly swimming hair, and you can subscribe to us on any major podcast platform as well. Follow RBLR Sports on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, everywhere at RBLR Sports. Now, Carlos, let's get into our quick recap.
By the way, watch us on YouTube. Check out the new fade. Shout out Rini the barber, on Hillsborough Avenue. I'm on the way to Oldsmar. I love that guy. I don't know if you need a barber. I guess you can go there. But anyway, more importantly, James, there's Rowdies content to talk about. Jordan Farr was in goal. Nothing unusual there. Jordan Doherty, Kleeman, and Guillen made up that back line. Pacific Nyangabire and Manjoma were your wingbacks. Crisostomo and Hilton were in the middle there. And up top, you had Cal Jennings, Manu Arteaga, and Joshua Perez playing in that more attacking role as he has been recently. That first half was a thriller, James. It was fun. It was a good time. It seemed like the Rowdies missed out on plenty of plenty of good looks in that early half. My dad was already doing that thing where he gets pessimistic after we miss one good look, and he's like, well, if you don't score, they're going to score on you. And he was kind of right. But nonetheless, we got on the score sheet eventually. Cal Jennings got it going, and it was a penalty before half that took us to a 2-0 lead. That being said, it was kind of exactly what I was expecting. Louisville didn't have a bad half themselves, and they probably deserved the goal they got right before halftime. So going into halftime, Rowdies were up 2-1. Louisville would score again on a similar situation. It was kind of like a scramble off of a corner on both of their goals. That was their first and second goal. Second goal came in that second half. Bit even after that, Rowdies with a lot of possession, pushing up, looking for opportunities, which they got. But it wasn't until Damian Rivera, the super sub, kid from New England came in here and made the difference. Love this guy. He's shown great flashes of potential, James, and it's so fantastic to see him realize that in a big moment like this against a big team like Louisville. It was a fun time for him to come through. I don't mind him scoring in any game, but this one in particular was a big one to try to close that gap a little bit. So good job to him. Huge kudos to Damian Rivera. It's fantastic to see him living up some of the potential that we saw flashes of early this year. Standings update. Indy beat San Antonio. Oakland beat Sacramento in Sacramento, by the way. That was a random one. I actually didn't even see that until I went through this right now. That's a crazy one. Sacramento now dropping 2 games after, having been undefeated.
And Oakland winning 2 in a row as well.
Yeah. Speaking of streaks, Colorado Springs is on a random, really random streak of their own. Before I jump into the standings, I just want to mention this because I'm going to forget. They've now gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games unbeaten. And 6 of those were wins. This is after they started the year with 5 losses in a row. They were bottom of the table. And I'm going to give some credit to my boy, Aiden Rocha, Georgetown alumni, for coming in here and helping to change that. After that, 8 games I said undefeated, 6 wins. They climbed the table from last place when they were in last place in the Western Conference not too long ago. 5 games losing to start the year. They're now in 4th place out west. That's probably one of the more notable streaks that kind of went under the radar, particularly with Indy going so crazy in this last 2 months, just winning. Keep an eye on Colorado because that is a really slept on team that has gone on a really quiet streak of 8 games unbeaten. Totally changed their season around. Okay. Other than that, out in the East Coast, Louisville still leads with 32 points from 14 games. Charleston and Indy have 29 points from 15 games. We have 25 points. So we're not far behind, closing the gap slightly, but it's going to take some significant drop off from Louisville to try and close that gap with first place. We still have 2 points on Detroit City, who's just behind us, and our friends down south in Miami, Florida, still only have 7 points. Rest in peace to the Miami FC. On the West Coast, New Mexico has 25 points from 13 games, by the way, out of nowhere, coming into first place, with a game in hand, by the way, on Sacramento, who's just behind them with 24 points. It's an interesting race out west. I certainly biased, but I feel like I'm objective in saying that the East Coast certainly has the more competitive is that the right word for it? There's better teams in the East Coast. West Coast competitive right now. It's a close gap actually between first and 8th place. There's only 7 points that separate all those 8 teams. So interesting out west. Here's my prediction. Champion of the league this year will come from the East Coast. It just feels like the teams are better over here right now. But the West Coast is certainly an interesting race to keep an eye out as well. Okay, that was a long ramble about the current table. Closing thoughts, keep an eye on Colorado Springs. Keep an eye on my boy, Aiden Rocha. And Juan Tejada, by the way, I didn't forget to mention him. Rowdy legend himself over in Colorado Springs. And yeah, lovely area, lovely stadium. Happy for them. Feels like it's been a little bit since they've had a good run. Good for them. Okay, James, Tampa Bay Rowdies. That's what we're here to talk about. I'm wearing the jersey. It's a nice one. It's cool. We got the nice little sleeves we've been asking for a while. The hoop sleeves. We got them this year, and they're doing pretty good, I'd say. Maybe taking a little bit longer than we had hoped to live up to those expectations, but big wins against Sacramento a couple weeks ago. Weird performance against Oakland in the middle, sandwiched by this Louisville game. So 2 huge wins with a kind of a sinker in between them. Weird enough, we don't have to talk about that game, like I said. But this Louisville game, another big one. What the hell happened in that first half? I don't know. I was there. We were scoring goals, and I felt great. So, James, you're the tactician in this dynamic duo, you and I. I feel like we looked good. We had a good game going. I'm not going to lie. It was fun to watch. It was entertaining. Missed out on a few of those chances early on. But clearly, things were going right for us. Maybe until that little, weird corner kick goal. How'd you see it playing out in that first half, of this game? I was going to say, I don't know if you were watching with the wedding going on. If you had to rewatch it, shout out to the folks that got married. Love a good wedding ceremony. But how'd you see this game play out?
Well, I was not able to watch it at the wedding, but I originally started by watching. I originally started by watching the highlights, and that gave me actually roughly a good sense of where things had been going. But of course, you do need to watch a little bit more to get the full picture. So I went and watched the rest of the game after that. The first half was very interesting because, as you already highlighted here, there were a ton of chances. It was extremely entertaining. If you were a neutral fan, there was a lot to enjoy. There was a ton to watch. So I really think that people who took this one and got their money's worth, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was something that we mentioned last week as well about Louisville. They do line up relatively similar to the Rowdies. They don't have exact corollaries for everybody on the field, such as Lewis Hilton. That was the biggest difference, I think, on the night, the way that he was playing. He is not the man of the match, but he would have a very good case for it. So for me, that is, just to continue with where we were playing, we did what we usually try to do. We would possess at the back, and then we would find Lewis Hilton. Lewis Hilton would look for pockets to find players in space, whether that's on the wing or actually a lot more through the center. One of the players that I noticed immediately when I was watching the highlights was Josh Perez dropping deep every time we had the ball. He would try to either stretch the back by making them aware that there's a presence behind them so that they need to watch for the long ball over their heads. Or more frequently, what I saw was he would drop in to try and pick up the ball closer to around the center circle, and then he could turn and beat somebody. Now, to do all of that, you do have to be able to beat the person, and he did a fantastic job of receiving the ball and turning despite somebody frequently being right on his back. So very good props to him and the players who did it as well, which were at different times Cal Jennings and Manuel Arteaga. They did a very good job, and this was, like I always like to do, I prefer to try to figure out how I feel about the game and then go back and check myself against John Morrissey. It is effectively going back and using the scorecard to see how well you did, because John Morrissey is the actual tactical guru for this league. So yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was pretty much similar. I felt the way that he wrote everything. So I will give myself props for getting those right, I guess. But yeah, it was rough. It was relatively easy to see what was going on at the same time. Like I said, though, Louisville City, they do play in a roughly similar shape, and they do try to build out with similar players. So that would be their wingers frequently, or in this case, obviously wing backs. That would be Aiden McFadden on the right. He was heavily involved, and he was actually heavily involved ultimately in the play that got us our second goal, because he, I believe, gave away the penalty. So when the Louisville City defenders, the deeper defenders, had the ball, that would be Kyle Adams on the left and someone on the right, Sean Toach on the right. It was up to Manuel Arteaga and Cal Jennings to try and cut them off from building out of the back the way that they would to those wing backs that we had already mentioned when we discussed this all last week. They did a fantastic job of this. At the time, let me just go back and check what the quote was. It looks like Lou City plays similar to the Rowdies. We will just ultimately see who does it better. So I think that we got that one relatively right, Carlos. We had to see who really did it better. And far be it from me to make big statements this way or that way. I guess I do it all the time. But Louisville City, I think we did it better than them. We had a better game, and we were better able to shut them down. They did a lot of very good work when they were out of possession and trying to win the ball back from us. But another thing that John Morrissey said is that we were just extremely good with the ball. We did not give it up as frequently, let's say, as we have seen in other games, if we want to just put it that way. And I really think that came down to Lewis Hilton receiving the ball in space, being able to turn with it. Despite several players closing in on him very quickly, he would be able frequently to look up, put a little ball over their top and into somebody's feet, frequently Josh Perez, as I've already mentioned, but also Eddie Manjoma on the left or Pacific Nyongabire on the right. They also had very, very good games, in my opinion, receiving the ball, turning, looking down the wing, seeing I have enough space and enough pace to get down there, and then going and doing that. And it was really great to see. Actually, on the goal that we scored, it was Jordan Doherty who everybody was closing down on Lewis Hilton, who had not even received the ball. So Jordan Doherty looked up himself and he saw that it was Josh Perez streaking into the middle of the field, where he was found in the center circle with a perfect little dinked ball over the top. and he was able off the chest, take one touch, beat the man who was on his back. Fantastic stuff. Absolutely brilliant from Josh Perez. And he laid off the perfect ball. Yes, he laid off the perfect ball to Cal Jennings, who then took one touch himself, rounded the goalkeeper, and scored. I actually noted from watching the highlights that was the second or third time that I saw Josh Perez do exactly that play. So this was clearly something that they had thought about and clearly something that they had worked on for Louisville City. It was awesome to see. And I was the only problem. Obviously, we did give up a goal, Carlos. That is a problem. Yeah. The only problem that I saw for the Rowdies in this game was our defense on set pieces. Now, that did not come down to Jordan Farr. I thought Jordan Farr, especially on the first goal, really did a great job at trying to keep the ball out. He got 2 saves on it, including one where he only got the first save and then had to push it away a second time. And then it came back again and he got another hand on it. So it's really unfortunate for Jordan Farr's sake that we weren't able to keep that out. But that was the problem, was the set piece defending. Otherwise, I thought we did pretty well.
You know who's pretty good at set piece defending, James? Forrest Lasso.
That's a good call.
this might have been one of the first games where it's a noticeable absence. I think we've, obviously Forrest Lasso is a fantastic center back. He is quite literally a towering figure.
Yes.
And I think this is the first time you've really been able to point to a defensive performance, and it's clear that we missed him, right? Yes. 2 corner kick goals are really, really frustrating, especially ones as silly as those. They weren't particularly, I don't know, maybe threatening is not the right word.
They're scrappy goals.
They were scrappy goals. They both were. It wasn't, planned. It wasn't, a nice little play. It was 2 set piece goals. It wasn't even something that we did totally poorly on. It was just messy goals. And not messy with an I. Those are good goals. Messy with a Y. Very lame. Really, really silly to give that up right before halftime. It felt like it was coming. Admittedly, they had their own chances. I mean, I think we had the better chances. Fat Mob says we had 5 big chances, quote unquote, to Louisville's 3. So it was a pretty active game in the attack. That being said, it wasn't, anything other than those 2 set pieces that Louisville ultimately converted. Would have been nice to have a guy like Forrest Lasso there to, clear a ball like that. I was hoping we'd notice Kleeman's size a bit more than we have, in a game like this. But actually Louisville almost had a goal off a header that where Kleeman was a little slow to track back to his guy. And I'm forgetting the name of the Louisville attacker who got his head on the end of the ball, but it was just wide of the post, and they could have easily been up 1-0. For either of our 2 goals. So something to keep in mind there. Kleeman, a fantastic defender. Hoping to see him become a bit more noticeable in the air. Yes. With the size he has. I think that's something we might be missing slightly. Obviously, with Lasso out, even bigger role there. But yeah, if you look back at the highlights, like you said, you were watching them, so you know what I'm saying. It was very clear early on that the Rowdies had these very, very, very clear chances. I don't have a number on the XG. I wish I did, because I love that stat. I think it's so fun. And the Rowdies must have been through the roof, because it was 2 insanely good looks off the bat. Cal Jennings stop me if you heard this. Cal Jennings knocks a long ball around the goalie and tries to slot it away, but it gets cleared off the line. That's ultimately how we got that first goal, by the way. Long ball knocked around the goalie. Feels like that happens at least once every game. So I mean, ultimately it worked out because our attack kept pushing. Was a penalty that led to our second goal. Pretty clear penalty. I mean, again, I'm biased, right? This is a Rowdies podcast. I'm wearing the jersey. But it looked clear enough. So, I mean, I don't think many Louisville fans were complaining about that call. About the ref, sure. Plenty of terrible calls, actually, on both sides throughout the game. I saw that on Twitter from Louisville fans were not happy. I know the Rowdies fans weren't happy right behind the goal about some pretty questionable calls. But ultimately the color purple was not happy on this night. And I think it was because of, a really good first half performance that set us up to, even though we let up the equalizer in the second half, we really built on that foundation from the first half. So I'm not going to be too critical of the back line in this one. I just wish, again, this is no, shot at Kleeman. He has the size to be a bit more imposing physically and in the air. And I want to see a little bit more of that, obviously, especially with a guy like Lasso out. We need that height. Jordan Doherty has been a fantastic guy on the back line. Again, we've talked about this a lot. He's not a center back by trade. He was a defensive midfielder, I believe, is what he's been for the majority of his short career as a pro. But he's come in and played that role really well.
Yep.
By the way, this is kind of a fun tidbit. Zach Ervo made another appearance yesterday, which was great to see. But the way I saw it, he was playing as like another center back. If you notice that, he came in and basically played in that back three, which was really interesting. Again, we're kind of a bit slow in the depth department right now. Thank you, Eureka, for the stat, by the way. Rowdy's XG was 1.87. Felt like it could have been even higher. But yeah, Zach Ervo comes in, play center back. Seems like we're having to make a bunch of, what's the word? Like, we have to be flexible right now. It always feels like the injuries not really affecting the game until you realize how thin the bench is. I was a bit concerned because Manjoma's been good, and Yangabira has shown like really, really big flashes of potential. But I hadn't been sold on Manjoma's role at the wingback spot. I think he had a good game though, so I think he proved me wrong. Yangabira had a good game as well. These are two guys that weren't, in our heads going to be starters at the wingback spots at the beginning of the year. That being said, they both played well. Blake Bodley was out in this one. Nick Moon was out. So depth at wingback did not exist. These guys played the full game, if I'm not mistaken. I can fact check myself. I might just be waffling. Point is, there's a lot of flexibility made throughout this game, full 90. Obviously a substitute scored the winner right before the 90 minutes. So that's also a shout out to Robbie Nielsen, right? I mean, he has done a pretty good job. And I think he made the right moves. He's been adaptable with the injuries. Zach Ervo, I think, filled in that center back role pretty well. He's tall. That's nice to have some height back there with what we've been working with. So overall, especially in that first half, it was lovely to see. Like you said, the only negative obviously was giving up that goal right before halftime. I don't really know what we can criticize there other than maybe just being a bit sharper. It was a silly goal to let up, really. Totally scrappy. At least the second goal had a little bit of semblance of a play. It wasn't just everybody kicking the ball until it goes into the back of the goal. But yeah, so no complaints from that first half. Again, just wanted it to be a clean sheet, going 2-0. But it was gritty. It was great. I mean, all around it was fun to watch. And obviously, I'm not going to complain when we get a win, particularly in that exciting fashion against a team that we needed to try and close the gap with. And this was a pretty good start. James, how do you see that late goal? Is that something that we should be concerned about, or are we just going to toss it up to a lack of sharpness in the big moment?
If you mean the corner from the first half?
Yeah, right at the end of the first half.
Well, I mean, if they're both ultimately they both came from corners, obviously. So it's maybe it's just a problem in terms of set pieces, which is not a good thing either. But you have to give it up to Louisville City as well. They are obviously a very good team. They wouldn't be where they were in the table without that. So I think that is something to take into consideration here. But our inability to clear the ball in both of those situations was unfortunate. As you said, Freddie Kleeman, maybe we need to see his height a little bit more involved. There are other tall players on this team, even without Forrest Lasso. We would like to see them get involved a little bit more on that side of things. Ultimately, maybe also keeping certain set pieces to a minimum is even something that needs to be taken into consideration. But that's something that we'll see as more time goes by, I suppose. This is the first one where I think we've noticed that. And obviously two set piece concessions in one game, that's not the best. So it does focus your mind on it maybe a little bit more than even you might have expected to. So that's another thing to keep in mind. But for this one, I think that the fact that we were able to limit Louisville City to goals from set pieces is also something that's positive, as much as we shouldn't have given up 2 set piece goals here. So there are all sorts of different ways to look at it. I think that Louisville City, of course, they want to win the ball from their pressing. They tried to do that a lot, and they were not able to do so against Jordan Doherty, Freddie Kleeman, Aaron Guillen. They all did pretty well on the ball. Lewis Hilton, he is a real unsung hero. I think it was who was it previously? I don't remember now. Somebody who every year is like, Lewis Hilton should be our MVP every year, and he always goes unsung. And unfortunately, that's the thing. He is an unsung hero. That's just the way that it goes, though. Yeah. But he is so good at his job that you almost don't even notice him. And I think that he had one of those games today where they could not get the ball off of him in a good position. He was constantly putting other players into a great position to then set up a bigger play that would ultimately lead to a goal. So, shout out to Lewis Hilton there. And I think that this was a deserved win ultimately in the end. That's the other point that I want to make. I think that we absolutely did play the way that we needed to get the win, even if it was closer because of the set piece goals that we gave up.
Yeah. Definitely deserved. I think we outplayed them. They had their own chances too, by the way. Like, it's not that Louisville played poorly. They actually played pretty well. But I think our backline did a very, very good job. Our midfield did a good job of limiting, opportunities right down the middle. But they had good looks of their own. But you jump into the second half, right? Right before, literally, what is it? 47th minute here, and then like 3 minutes later. So right as the second half starts, it's 2-1, right? We go into this half, and we need a little bit of stability. Keep a cool head. Louisville gets one back. You're up by 1 goal against probably the best team in the league at this point. Maybe India is an argument, but whatever. So we're there, and it's a big game and whatever. So we come out hot, and I love to see it. It was in the 48th minute. I'm looking back at the highlights now to check. Manuel Arteaga gets a nice ball, cuts back, and just throws a fantastic shot that hits just under the crossbar. Bounces out to Cal Jennings, who has a wide open goal, but slightly shanks it wide. So Rowdies have a look here that hits the post. Cal Jennings has a basically open goal, but just doesn't really get his foot over the ball correctly. 2 minutes later, Louisville equalizes. So obviously there's like that, cliche about if you don't score goals, the other team's going to score on you, whatever, yada, yada. But again, it's nice to see that we're creating these insanely dangerous opportunities. Last week you heard me say how I just want a little bit more from Cal Jennings because he's set such high expectations for himself. He had a great start to the year, had a little bit of a slow patch the past few games. By his standards, again, very high standards. So it was great to see him get back on the score sheet in this one with a nice, very Cal Jennings-esque goal in that first half. Obviously, Arteaga took the penalty, but both of those players had more chances of their own. They kept getting on the end of balls. So it was good. It was good to see perseverance. It's good to see them both on the score sheet. It's really nice to see. That dynamic duo has had fantastic games throughout this season already. It's only going to get better, I hope. If you can bring in a super sub like Damien Rivera, by the way, let's jump into that. Louisville ties it, in the 50th minute, and it's not until almost 40 minutes later, after a pretty tight back and forth affair. Not a ton of opportunities, I would say, in the second half. You have a couple good looks for either team, but it wasn't until you bring on the super sub himself, Damien Rivera, who scores a fantastic little volley off of it wasn't a corner kick, but it was a lovely ball in, almost from the corner, from Pacific.
Almost,
it was just outside. It was the corner of the big box. So Young Rivera puts in a lovely left-footed ball. It's good to, he's really able to use both feet really well, which is lovely to see at the wingback spot. He can, that's why I think he's so dangerous too. He can cut in. He's a great dribbler. He is very Damien Rivera-esque in that way. He's not really afraid to take anybody on. So he's always keeping you on edge because he can dribble by you, but he can also put that lovely ball in, which I was hoping to see a bit more from him. I think I've said that in the past. He's gotten into dangerous opportunities or dangerous spaces, but has slightly over-pinged the cross or slightly underpassed someone. So maybe that was something he's been working on. If he has, kudos to him. It seemed like it worked. He's found Damien Rivera perfectly. And Damien Rivera had an incredibly tough finish, by the way. Sticking out his leg like that, doing a little, volley out of the air. Didn't do much, but get contact on it. But that's so hard to do at that speed, that
Yes.
accuracy with that quick, and it was a tight angle too. It wasn't a lot of space to put that away, but he did it. So that was a fantastic goal. If you want to jump in the second half a bit, other than that, James, I mean, it just felt like it was pretty tight. I was a little concerned when Louisville equalized. Obviously, it's the famous 2-0 lead that my dad loves to tout, which was that's what he always says. And in this case, it didn't play out in the way it usually does when there's a 2-0 lead blown.
Yeah, that's true.
Enough, we were able to bring it back. I think that says, honestly, I said this was obviously a totally different extreme, that Open Cup game against Birmingham. We still managed to win after giving up 4 goals in 10 minutes or whatever. But it's testament to a team's character to be able to keep pushing like that after blowing a 2-0 lead. Keep understanding that you're doing your job right, and if you keep doing that job right, the goals will come. And obviously, in this case, it did in stoppage time in the 91st minute. Lovely, lovely goal. Haven't heard Al Lang Stadium that loud in a regular season game in a decent amount of time. So it was good to see that. Ralph's mob was in full voice. The crowd was lovely. I don't have the number on me, but it felt like a good sized crowd. So lovely way to end the game on a lovely play. I have no complaints about the second half. I think it's truly what's the word? I'm not forgetting. I'm forgetting the right word. But let's get back and finish what I was saying. Testament to the team's character, we will fight back like that, and a lovely goal to finish off. So I can't complain at all on that second half. I like the way you described it in our notes here, James. It was on knife's edge in the second half. That's a fun way to describe it. Would you see anything else in the second half? Anything I might have missed here? Maybe how'd you see it play out? Just felt pretty tight.
Yeah, you covered most of it. And producer Eureka, really quick on the draw again here, 5,393 attendance. So obviously you were right about the draw of a game like this versus Louisville City. I think that matters, and I think that does bring people in. It, of course, does contribute to getting people loud and rowdy in the stands, because this is a big game for us, not only just because Louisville City is top of the table, but we have the history, we have the purple, all that stuff that we've already gone over too.
There's a kid wearing an Orlando City jersey in the stadium, and he had he was talking smack. I think once people were like, by the way, we should get your Rowdy shirt. He started walking around. He goes, well, what even is a USL? We finished second in MLS last year. This kid was couldn't be more than 15. I think his parents got pretty mad when Ralph's mom started giving him smack, let's say. Flack, that's a better word for it. The color purple did not have a good night that night, I'll tell you what. So yeah, it was a good one. Like you said, I drew a good crowd. Honestly, lower than I thought, by the way. How loud it was, and just based on what I saw in the stadium, definitely felt like more than the 5,400 that was there, but I wouldn't lie about that, surely. Sorry, James, to interrupt you, but that was a fun anecdote from the game that anybody who was in Ralph's mob would remember that one for sure.
No, you're good. You're good. I think at this point, what we should do is move on to the man of the match, though, because we've talked about all the different ins and outs of this game. And just to say congratulations to Pacific Nyongabire. He was on the USL Team of the Week. So a good thing to note. But Carlos, I will turn it back over to you now.
Yeah, Pacific was definitely a close shot for me for end of the match. I've done this before. The player who was on the USL Team of the Week, he's got his flowers. But what's more important, James, is the RBLR Sports man of the match. Honestly, people are saying this is comparable to the Ballon d'Or. Me and you shouting out our best player. Yeah, I mean, many people have been saying this. So kudos to those many people. I think it just might be me and you. But point being, my man of the match, James, was none other than the goal scorer, the game winner himself, Damian Rivera. Fantastic last few minutes from him. He had about, I'm going to forget when he subbed in. Let's say he had 25-ish minutes. It was sometime around there when he came in. He's had flashes of incredible, exciting potential. You've seen him come in and just dribble away. And really quiet kid, by the way. As we've talked about, he goes about his business and does a good job in the process. Mm-hmm. We've seen really, really flashy potential from him, which is so funny to see because it just contradicts his personality. But he's so good on the ball. I love to see him take players on one-on-one. But in this case, it was his finishing that shone through, which wasn't something that I think we particularly expected from him to be just a goal scorer. but the more the merrier. He scored a few goals already this year. This was an incredible way to make a mark on the season, not just on this game, on the season. This is one of those games that we'll be thinking about for a while.
Yeah.
Because of its implications of, again, the opponent we were playing against. So for all those reasons,
the emotion of a late winner.
Yeah. And again, this is so funny because I saw him after the game. I was walking around with my dad, chatting with a couple of players on the way out, and kid's cool as hell. Like, no, like he didn't even, like, I don't think it felt like he didn't even, oh, sorry, it's kind of loud. It felt like he didn't even understand he scored the game winner, if that makes any sense. It was really interesting to see him just like, oh yeah, thanks for coming, guys. I was like, I appreciate the support, and go about his business. Like, all right, Damien, good for you. So kudos to him. Love the kid. Good guy, good personality. Really one of those quiet kids you like to see succeed. So yeah, fantastic goal. I'm gonna keep rambling on about him if I don't shut up. So James, give me your man of the match because I like this guy too. He had a good game.
Yes, I could have gone with several different players. I've obviously talked about Lewis Hilton, and of course it is unfortunate, as I said, that he is an unsung hero because that usually means that he continues to stay unsung. But I must go with someone else here. I honestly could have given this to several players. The person that stood out, like I said, when I started this, I watched the highlights before I watched the actual full game, and he was doing this over and over, and I really saw the influence of that when the Rowdies had the ball. Josh Perez is my man of the match for his ability to drop in, pick up the ball with a man on his shoulder, take it, turn the other way, and then play it into space for somebody else. At least twice, Cal Jennings for a very good chance. That one, like you said, that was cleared off the line, and then obviously the goal that gave Josh Perez his assist. So I would have given it to Lewis Hilton. I would have given it to Pacific Nyongabire. I might have even given it to Eddie Munjoma, but Josh Perez is the winner today because of his influence in terms of manipulating space by moving Louisville's defense forward and backward, had them they didn't even know where to go a lot of the time. So Josh Perez, well done, sir. I think that it is only his second man of the match award for us this season, which seems low based on the level of performance we have seen him play. This was a player who came in last season, Carlos. You and I were like, okay, fair enough. Yeah. And he has absolutely taken it to a new level this season. I don't know what the difference is. I would actually, Carlos, we should try and get him in a post-game interview and talk about that because he has hit an absolutely new level this year. And I think that he has shown himself. Not only is he a in pen starter at the moment because he has started so many of the last several games, but at the same time, he is contributing extremely important plays to this team every single one of those games.
Yeah. Who would have thought we're talking about Joshua Perez as like a huge, not just like a role substitute player. We're talking about Joshua Perez as a crucial starter for this team at this point.
Yeah.
By the way, this is a team that has Charlie Dennis on the bench. Obviously Charlie Dennis coming back from injury a bit. But still, I mean, Charlie Dennis is back playing soccer now. And there's not really a question about whether there's not really a question about whether Joshua Perez should be taken out right now because the soccer he's playing is really good.
Yeah.
Charlie Dennis, slightly different position, but not really same type of player. I think we might see Joshua Perez kind of like this in this game. He got subbed out in the 68th minute for Charlie Dennis, and what a sub that would be if Charlie Dennis is our super sub. MVP-esque season last year with Leo Fernandez out.
Ridiculous.
It's this team and is special talent-wise, and there's a lot of really good players on this team, and Joshua Perez being one of the ones that we're talking about as a serious, crucial starter is a little funny to me, but also like really cool. By the way, we always I don't think we emphasize this enough. This is kind of fun that it was his uncle, right? He's a family member who used to play for the Rowdies back in the 70s. So fun legacy there with Joshua Perez as well. So yeah, great shout for man of the match from you, James. Good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That being said, before we jump into the preview to our opponents in that weird little state of Connecticut, we're going to give a shameless plug here, James, for none other than the RBLR Rowdies watch party. Saturday, June 29th at 7 p.m. versus the powerful Loudoun United. It'll be a fun game. It's highly winnable, I think, but we won't talk about that because I might jinx it. Point being, it's at Berry House Beer Company in Ybor City, 1403 East 5th Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33605. It's going to be a blast. 6:15 p.m. is the live pregame show. There's beer pitcher specials, great award-winning craft beer from Berry House. It's a lovely, lovely place. It's in Ybor. Again, the game's at 7. You get out of there by 9, and you're in prime time going out hours in Ybor City. I can't think of a much better place to be in Tampa, Florida. So be there. It'll be a good time. We'll have those halftime swag giveaways again, which are often contributed to by the Tampa Bay Rowdies themselves. So could get yourself some gear while you're there, watch a game. Most importantly, be surrounded by Rowdies fans like James and I and Eureka. And we'll have a good time in the process. Come join us. We'll have a good time. We'll have some good food, good beer, and chat about the Tampa Bay Rowdies. After and during, I guess, hopefully really, really impressive win against Loudoun United, which usually seems to happen, but you never know. So, again, that's on June 29th, Loudoun United Rowdies watch party at Berry House Beer Company. Come join us. We'll have a good time. Okay. That all being said, James, do you want to take us a bit through who it is that we're playing this? Oh, I almost said Saturday. Friday. What a weird time. But that's good. Ecuador plays Saturday in the Copa America, which everybody should be watching. But Friday, 7:30 p.m. against who, James?
Yes, so this weekend we are watching a game on Friday because the Rowdies are traveling to Hartford to play Hartford Athletic, like I said, in Connecticut, a state
Very
that is
athletic.
way too small to be a state. They are just outside the playoff positions with 16 points from 13 games, not the best record, but so it goes. 7 Tampa Bay Rowdies wins in the history of this fixture. Just something to keep in mind for all of you Rowdies fans out there.
We own those frauds.
Yeah, exactly. Their last game was a win over Pittsburgh, who happened to be below them in the table. Not so great for Pittsburgh either, but otherwise they have had mixed form. Left back Tristan Hodge and forward Michi and Galina were also on the USL Team of the Week this past week. So need to keep an eye on a couple of people, and we're going to get into that now. They almost exclusively use a lineup of a 4-2-3-1 with Renan Rivera in net. I don't know if you remember us discussing Renan Rivera, Carlos, at the beginning of the season. He was one of those incredibly random signings where he had played in Portugal for
that's right.
like 10 years, moved to Saudi as a backup, and then for some reason Hartford went and got this guy. But
the magic of USL, baby. The magic of the USL.
Just an extremely weird signing, and I guess he's been up and down as well. But that could quite well be down to the team in front of him. So just keep that in mind. The 4 in the back are usually Tristan Hodge at left back, Joe Farrell, former Rowdy Jordan Scarlett, and a regular changing cast of people at right back. I believe that they have found their starting right back because they just recently made a trade. Romario Williams, who was at Hartford, went to Indy, and in return, Indy sent them Younes Boudadi, who is originally from Belgium, but a Moroccan youth international. He will probably be the right back that we see when we play them this upcoming weekend, because the other 2 options have not been as good as Hartford would have wanted. Another former Rowdy has been starting recently. That is Tomas Fanke-Azil, who played, I think, only 8-10 games for us, something not that big, but he was a contributor late on in the season. I think maybe 2 seasons ago. He's been starting alongside Beverly Makangila in the midfield, with Deshane Beckford, Jay Chapman, and Marcus Epps all starting in front of them. Michi and Galina, who I already mentioned, will likely start up top. He has 5 goals so far, while Jamaican Deshane Beckford has 2. 4 guys, including Anderson Asiedu, formerly of Birmingham Legion, if you remember that name, have 2 assists so far this season. However, the rest of the chance creation has come mostly from the fullbacks and the wingers, left back Tristan Hodge and left winger Deshane Beckford, as well as right winger Marcus Epps. And whoever is playing at right back, more than likely Boudadi, will be key players in this game, as I said. So all of those things are stuff that we need to keep in mind. We're going to break down a little bit more, but I also wanted to mention first that they have given up 4 penalties on the season and have not kept a ton of clean sheets. So that is all something to keep in mind. Honestly, the Rowdies haven't kept as many clean sheets as you or I might have hoped, Carlos, but at the same time, we are going up against a team that I believe is even worse in that department. So let's all just note that when we're moving forward for this one. This game overlaps with a Copa America game of Chile versus Peru. Unless you are Chilean or Peruvian, you have no excuse. Tune in and watch the boys on Friday night. But yeah, we will have to shut down more than likely their two central midfielders. Again, thozose are Venkay Azil and Makangila. I don't know that either of them have a ton of ability to, let's say, spray the ball around a la Lewis Hilton. So it's probably going to be down to their center backs to try and find the wing backs. Or, excuse me, these are fullbacks on this side. And then they will try and get the ball up themselves to those wingers or Jay Chapman and leave it up to the wingers or Jay Chapman as the number 10 to try and create things for Michi and Galena to get on. So I think our ability to make them play the way that we want them to play is going to be important here. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is while we're trying to do that and compress the field or stretch the field, however we want to line up, they do have a turf field. I believe it is a football field, so it might be a little bit different for us to play on. And that will probably impact things because, Carlos, you and I have seen it impact things quite recently and in a couple of different occasions.
Yeah, we might be cooked. I forgot about that. I forgot that other USL teams are funky and play on weird fields, and Hartford is certainly no exception to that. Yeah, team that on paper we should beat, right? But you never know with these away games in the USL. You know, it's not that the crowd in Hartford is particularly bumping or anything, and it's a crazy home field advantage, but it's one of those fields that seem to always be a bit challenging, even when we've been up there and we know we're the better team. It's been a bit challenging to come out with a good win over there. We do it because we are a massive club with huge name players, and we just like to win games because that's what we do. And Hartford isn't that, but you never know. And like you said, turf is always a big factor here. Hartford's had a mixed bag in their last 5, by the way. Kind of trending up after a really, really slow middle part of the year. Had a good start, by the way. They won 3 of their first 4 games of the year and then just slumped for like 6 games in a row, 7 games in a row. In the last 5, they've won 2 and tied 1 and only drawn 1. Win against Pittsburgh, like you said, Pittsburgh is not having a great year of their own, so maybe nothing really crazy to be taken from there.
Yeah.
That being said, we did tie against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, which was really lame. So I don't know. Team with a mixed bag of players, some names you definitely would recognize because there's good talent on here. Marcus Epps is a fantastic player in this league. Thomas Vancasio is a solid player in his own right. And one of my favorite Rowdies in recent memory, Jordan Scarlett, is over there. Excuse me. So, with all due respect to my man, Jordan Scarlett, and the other former Rowdy, Thomas Vancasio, and Marcus Epps, a player I love for other reasons.
Formerly of USF.
Correct. Tampa man himself. I think this is a game that we should win. I'm always the optimist, James. You know that. I mention this every week because for whatever reason, you're going to say we lose like 3-0 when we get to predictions. But I'm feeling good about this, especially after this performance against Louisville. I have no reason to believe there'll be a significant drop like we had against Oakland after that Sacramento win. So, yeah, good week of practice upcoming. I hope we'll get out to the Hartford and play a normal away game and not stay out in California for, however long it was we were out in California and have that weird drop off against Oakland. It should be a standard going about your business game against a team that I think is pretty clearly a level below us. And by the way, Chile Peru is going to be a stinker of a game. Those are 2 teams that are horrendously mediocre.
They're doing very poorly right now.
You have no reason to watch that one unless you want to watch mediocre soccer with a mediocre atmosphere because they're playing in the U.S. And I'm not sure there's a ton of, I don't know. I guess there's a bunch of Peruvians in the U.S. But with the exception of our Chilean friend and Ralph's Mob, who has that really lovely banner with Colo Colo and the Rowdies on it, everybody else should be watching this game. So it'll be a fun one, I'm sure. And I'm going to predict a win when we get there. James, you want to go see your prediction first, or should we wrap up with something else about this team? Do you have anything else to add before we jump into predictions?
No, like I said, real quick, Just got to try and mostly shut down the fullbacks. And I think that our ability to do that is going to come down to, again, probably roughly similar abilities from Cal Jennings and Manuel Arteaga that we saw them display this past week versus a much better team, let's say. And then it's going to come down to the wingbacks in combination with Aaron Guillen on the left, Jordan Doherty on the right, to really shut down Epps and Beckford. So again, these are good players, but they are going to get a chance or two. I still think that we should be able to beat them.
Cool. James, we'll jump into it. I'll give my prediction first. I'm going to obviously say we're going to win because I don't think I've predicted anything. I think I predicted a draw once this year. I'm going to predict a win for us because we're a massive club and we like to win games. And I think we're the better team, like I said. That being said, plenty of talent, like we mentioned on this Hartford side. But all things considered, I still think even on that turf field, we keep up this nice little performance after this Louisville game when we win 2-0. I assume either one of Cal Jennings or Arteaga are going to score. And the other goal is going to be like some shot from like Nyangabire. Louis Sultan's going to find him running down the right side. Nyangabire is going to throw like a right-footed shot near post. And that'll be our second goal after either Jennings or Arteaga score the first goal. Hyper-specific prediction. I'm sure it's going to be right because I've never been wrong in my life about anything. 2-0 Rowdies win. James, what about you?
All right. Well, I am going to go against the grain here and buck my own trend and predict a 3-0 win.
Wow.
So that's what I'm going with, folks.
I don't feel good about it now that you predicted a win, by the way. I feel like this is breaking some sort of like tradition we've got here.
Carlos, you and Eureka have actually chosen the same scoreline, a 2-1 win, or excuse me, a 2-0 win for both of you. But I am the one who's going all out and 3-0. So just keep that in mind, folks. Sure. I think that'll do it for our preview against Hartford. As we both said, this should be a win by rights. Of course, there is the possibility that the Turf Monster makes an appearance and kind of gets with
always does.
Kind of gets in our way, turns things around, and heats Hartford up more than us. So just keep that in mind when we go into this one. But Carlos, let's hop into extra time. I think that I will let you start this one.
Oh, the greatest tournament other than the World Cup in international soccer is starting on Thursday. I believe Canada-Argentina is the first game, if I'm not mistaken.
You are right.
Yep. Canada, good Lord. They're not fantastic right now. That'll be
They're not winning that game.
Whatever. Argentina's going to smoke them, which is hard for me to say because I'm not a big fan of that national team, but it is what it is. The Copa America is starting, and Argentina are certainly one of the favorites, but there's plenty of other good teams to keep an eye out in this one. Brazil is always a contender. Obviously, Colombia looks fantastic. Uruguay is in insanely good form. Darwin Nunez, I love him as a striker. He's going to do incredibly well this tournament. I feel like this is a big, big tournament for him. Sort of breakout potential here. Really able to like leave a mark on a major tournament pretty early on in his career. I feel like that could be the one for him in this one. Love Uruguay's national team. They're really fun to watch. Great form right now. That being said, I think Ecuador is not far behind any of those teams I just mentioned. The talent on Ecuador's national team is incredible. Our first game is Saturday against Venezuela. I'm skeptical of our manager, who has had questionable tactics in the past, but our players are really, really good. The talent's there. We finally have big names all over Europe. It's really, really cool. I think Ecuadorian soccer has been disrespected for a long time, probably by its own doing in a lot of situations, shooting itself in the foot. I don't think this is one of those tournaments where we're going to flop as we usually do. Copa America has been a curse for Ecuador's national team. It's one of only two teams to not have won one. I mean, even Bolivia has won a Copa America in their history, with all due respect to Bolivia.
Did they host that?
It's actually potentially. It was a long time ago. Ecuador is due for one eventually. Why not this one? Who cares what everybody says? It's a really, really good looking team. I wish there was a little bit more in the attack, but from the midfield back is just world class. So I'm excited to see them play. The United States has a really solid team. You saw them play a good game against Brazil. I saw them in person play a good game against Brazil. It was a really fun time. There's no reason why the U.S. men's national team can't put it together in a big game like this. I know all the Berhalter haters are out there shaking their fists at me right now. By the way, Bolivia did host that Copa America. Good shout, James.
It's very hard to play there, so I was like, maybe.
Yeah. By the way, Ecuador hosts the one after this one, and we have altitude on our side too. Ecuador was supposed to host this year, but due to the less than stable political situation over there, it was not a good idea this time around. So that being said, all things considered, the U.S. is a good-looking team. Ecuador has a really good-looking team. Ecuador in particular might be even better shape by the time the next Copa America rolls around at home. Maybe time for the first one for Ecuador, but I'm optimistic. I love this tournament. It's so much fun. Ecuador got knocked out so early last year, so I'm hoping for a better run from us this year. The U.S. has no reason, I think, to not make a decent run themselves. So let's go for it. I don't know. I hope they don't play against each other because that's always kind of conflicting. But
yeah, I can imagine.
If they do, let it be very late in the tournament. That'd be a fun time. So yeah, James Copa America is gonna be a blast. Tune in. The Euro started. We watched a few good games today. So lots of great soccer happening. That being said, screw the international break. USL is going full force, full speed ahead. Plenty of soccer, plenty of Rowdies content, despite there not being a home game for another 3 weeks. There's 3 weeks straight of Rowdy soccer. So
yes,
plenty of stuff to watch there. Plenty of soccer. It's a good time to be watching sports.
Especially this one, I will say.
Yeah. And then the Olympics are coming up too, by the way.
Yeah.
It's gonna be oh my God, what a summer. James, tell us about what's going on down in Naples, Florida.
Yeah, so if anyone missed this, I believe we discussed it when it came out, but there will be a USL League One team. So in the division beneath us, they will have a team, FC Naples, and they recently announced their colors and crest, I believe this week. Maybe it was last week, like very, very late last week. But either way, FC Naples is around. They are a team. They are moving forward. They are going to have actual games coming up, I believe, in 2025, although I am not too certain. But look them up. They had a really nice crest, in my opinion. I like the colors. I mean, it just makes sense to have the colors that they chose. And it'll be cool. Yeah.
A lot of shapes and
yeah. It was I didn't read like all of the descriptions about why they chose, like I don't get all of I don't think they need to do all of that, but whatever. I think that the crest looks nice, and that's kind of most of what you need. It's cool that there's going to be more professional soccer around here. Maybe we'll play them in the Open Cup, maybe we'll play them in a preseason tournament, come up with some anti-Naples heckling. Anyone who's working on that, anyone who's been there, I'm sure that you will have some lines. Speaking of professional soccer, the Tampa Bay Sun are just rolling along, folks. Last week, it was 5 days, 5 new players. So far this week, I believe it's only been 1 new player. So somehow it is a turn down to announce only 1 new player. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous. They have 12 players. No, they had 12 players previously, so it should be 14 now. They have 14 players, if I'm not mistaken, on the team, including a goalkeeper. They could field the team with substitutes, something that my outdoor team of only 7 people could not do. Crazy. They have also today.
I could have pulled up.
You're gonna drive down to Bradenton?
Sure, why not, dude? I'm telling you, back in my prime, I was an elite right back. I could bring that back for a few games, but whatever.
I'm gonna keep that in mind next time. All right.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, the Tampa Bay Sun have also released their kits today. There's so much to go over, so please tune into our Tampa Bay Sun show because they are talking about everything that's going on with this team. I'm very excited for them. And in relation to the Tampa Bay Sun, who will be playing just down the street from this area, please show up at our party in Berry House off the Ybor Strip on June 29th. We will be watching the first game of the season against Loudoun United. They will be against Loudoun United, obviously, in Virginia. So we will be watching them from Berry House. Please show up to our watch party. There will be a pregame show, obviously halftime swag giveaway, and of course, fantastic beer. We have talked about their wonderful beer at Berry House before. Come and try it for yourself, and you will see what we mean. Now, Carlos, I think we've done everything. Are we missing anything? There we go. Anyone who's not on the YouTube, you're missing out a little bit.
Yeah, this is a good time to tune in. We've been wearing my favorite hat around all day on the beach, drinking Coronas. Thumbnail, yeah. It's gonna be a fun time. I don't know. Loudoun's not particularly great at soccer, so hopefully we have a fun game to watch on our end.
I'm sure it'll be fun. Well, It'll be fun one way or another. We have beer, folks.
Well, I mean, look, you can have fun even if we hypothetically get blown out 5-0. There's beer to drown your sorrows, right? So
yes, exactly.
Everybody knows alcohol makes everything better. Okay, James, that's a good way to end our podcast for the day. Also, hold on, fun tidbit here. Our very own Tom DePinto from the RBLR Sun Show got totally subtweeted by Christina Uncle on Twitter, which I thought was really funny.
Yep.
He said at some point last week, he goes, we've signed everybody, and all these teams have goalie except us. I'm like, what's going on there? And then I think like the next day they announced their goalie signing, and Christina Uncle goes, people on Twitter have been saying we haven't signed the goalie. This is very obviously about this one tweet. Anyway, that was a fun RBLR interaction with RBLR Sun. Go listen to them. Tampa Bay Sun are already a fun team, and we've never even seen them kick a ball unless you watch TST. It'll be a fun time. The location on the water is lovely. They're going to turn that little high school stadium into a really, really nice soccer venue right on the water. You can go pregame at Armature Works right across the street. Sure, the drinks will be a little expensive, but you can't put a price on that view, James. So we'll have a good time there. I will certainly be at a bunch of games. It's going to be a blast. Go listen to RBLR Sun. Another shout out to them because there's plenty of stuff going on there in the Sun.
There we go. All right. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We appreciate, of course, when you do. Please follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, everywhere at RBLR Sports. I am mostly on Twitter at RBLR James K. What about you, Carlos?
I'm on Twitter. Yeah, I'm on Twitter trying to slowly get my way off, but it's not possible because it's the dopamine addiction is just insane. You get that notification, James Knowles liked your tweet. Like, oh my goodness, James Knowles is looking at my content. Literally can't make my day any better. Follow me at CarlosTPA10. I'm obviously tweeting about the Rowdies. I'm sure I'm going to be ranting about Ecuador's tactical formation against Venezuela, of which I know literally nothing. I don't know anything about tactics, but I'm on Twitter and I'm going to pretend like I do know what I'm talking about. So we're going to have a good time.
That's what it's for.
Yeah. I mean, nobody's ever been wrong on Twitter, is what I'll say. Follow me. I don't know. Hashtag content, like my tweets. I like getting the dopamine hit. So I don't know. Follow me. I don't know what else do I have to say. That's all I got to say, James. I'm rambling at this point. Close this out before I keep talking and say more stupid things.
The last thing is just like and subscribe to our podcast. You can get the full experience on YouTube, but we are also on Spotify, iHeartRadio app, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Now for another good week for the Rowdies, a great win in the books, and another one hopefully coming up. Come on, you Rowdies.
Come on, you Rowdies. Let's go, James.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.